Well, hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Stout, and I'm here with Sherrie Galloway and Kyle Claybaugh, and we're going to talk about the wonderful world of Library of Congress exhibitions. The library does in-person exhibitions and has since the early 1970s, 1977s. And then they put them online so that they digitize them and put them online so everyone can see them and use them. To date, they have 134 of these. So when you go to the homepage of the Library of Congress, you scroll down till you see the exhibitions, which is right there just above your library. And when you click on that, you get the exhibitions homepage. And you can see there are current exhibits, Rosa Parks, In Her Own Words, Exploring the Early Americas, so forth. But then if you look over on the right-hand side, you'll see View All Exhibitions. So they're all in alphabetical order, and it's a huge variety. Just everything, well, not quite A to Z, but A to W at least. The early exhibitions, like the American Treasures, which was in 1997, are not as in-depth as the ones that are been put up in the last few years, but you can see it. There's the exhibition overview, and then there's the learn more and acknowledgements. And you can see there's a ton of things on learn more, how to connect to kids, all kinds of things. And then there are the top treasures. And so this is a selection that the library made of their top treasures. And I think, Sherrie, you know something more about this?
Well, I wanted to point out, do you see next to top treasures where it says memory, reason, and imagination? Those were the three categories that Thomas Jefferson used to catalog his books. And so that was his organization system before Dewey Decimal and before the Library of Congress system. And so memory, reason, and imagination are just categories. So when they did this exhibit, they had three cases, basically. One was memory, one was reason, one was imagination, and the items would rotate from the different divisions on what their top treasures were. So just in case you were wondering why those topics were there.
Okay, great. If you can back out of that, Kyle, and scroll down to World Treasures. So you can either scroll or use the little alphabet. I think you have to go all the way out. Yeah, so you can scroll or you can just go to the W. And World Treasures is a newer digitized exhibit. It was on exhibit from 2001 to 2003. So you can see again on the home line, there's exhibition items, there's learn more, public programs, and then acknowledgements. And then below it, as in all of these, there's an introduction, which is, I think, one of the most important things. It's the so what. So what's the deal? Why should we think this is important? Why should we care about this? And then, so you can see the different sections. Creation, entertaining, ordering, explaining and ordering, recording the experience. And so the most in-depth one I found to this point, and I'm not as great at this as some other people, but America Reads. So you're gonna have to go back to the A's, or just scroll down to see America Reads. This one was really impressive. Where'd it go? There it is. again, you can see the overview, the items, but this has got multimedia, public programs, social presentations, and then this one is done by year span of what books shaped America. I thought that was a fascinating read to see if I've been shaped or not. Sherrie, oh well, let's
Yes.
talk about the ability to copy some of these items. Like if I wanted to use America Reads, could I copy that and paste it on into a Word document?
If I'm in a section like this, and I want to maybe copy that whole JD Salinger box there,
Yeah,
I would just use a cropping tool. I don't know if the new cropping tool that the library has available is available in exhibitions or not. One of the things that happens in exhibitions, and I just got a notice that said my connection is unstable, so we'll see how that goes. Is that they don't necessarily have a link to where the digitized item might be in the regular collection. So that can sometimes be a challenge. So when you clicked on Catcher in the Rye there, and you brought up that image of the book, the title, I believe the whole, yeah, that isn't necessarily will connect you to a permanent record about the item. But I believe that, it's okay to copy and paste that. I don't see the clipping tool here. But quite often the things that are in the exhibitions do belong to the Library of Congress. And often you can then take that title and search for it and find it in the online digitized collections. Does that
great.
make any sense?
It does, and that's a way, another use of these things for students. Kyle, do you have a favorite exhibition? Putting you on the spot.
Oh man, my favorite exhibition. I think one of my favorites is, I was just looking at this one. American Treasures. Or no, it was I'm sorry, that's one you just looked at. It was the one with the Walter-Mueller map in it. I'm sure, Sherrie, you know that one.
Okay, so that one is Exploring the Early Americas.
Exploring, that's what it was. So we'll go ahead and
And that can be a challenge sometimes, remembering the exact titles. And there is a way to search in just the exhibitions. Do you see on the left where it says search this site? And so possibly if we put Walter-Mueller in there, which again is difficult to spell, but it might pop up in this exhibit. But that Exploring the Early Americas is one of my favorites too. So tell me why it's yours, Kyle, and then I'll tell you why it's mine.
I think mainly just because of the Walter-Mueller map. That was, like when I first started working with teaching with primary sources and really digging in and trying and adapting different lesson plans and trying different things. The Walter-Mueller map was just, it always comes back up. There's so many different little tiny things in it. It was created so long ago and has so many stories that can just be adapted from it and used with it. And yeah, I just love that map so much.
So can you?
One of the things about this exhibit, and I'll just give you a little tidbit, it's called the J. Kislak collection, which is the bulk of this exhibition. The Walter-Mueller map wasn't necessarily part of Kislak's collection, but he moved to Florida and wanted to learn about Florida, so he started collecting about early Floridians and early Caribbean, that time period, collected around explorers and the aftermath. So this whole exhibition covers that time period of pre-contact, contact, and then the aftermath. And so the Walter-Mueller map kind of fit in right with that whole time period and what was happening. So when they do exhibits, a lot of times they merge things depending on what resources they have. One of the things that I really liked about this collection, I mean, the Walter-Mueller map too, but do you see the link that says interactive presentations? It's up on that column where home, exhibition review, exhibition items, and then it says interactive presentations. If you click on that very first one, the pre-Columbian artifacts, most people would never even know that this is here, but we can look at these resources and there's a way to actually dig deeper. On the left, if you pick the one that has 11 figures, vase with 11 figures. Yeah, that one. We can look at this actual artifact, which often we don't use in primary sources as often because they're harder to come by. But if you click on the translate on the right, I don't know if I was fast enough to catch you.
Yep, sorry, going too fast.
This actually shows the vase laid out in a flat format. And what we did with students was we gave them just that image and assigned one image for them to kind of decipher and analyze, try to, come up with a story, what you think this is, why they would have put this on the vase and what it might depict. And they're pretty bizarre. Some of them, it's perfect for middle school because there's a lot of, kind of bizarre things. But then we have a translation by specialists talking about what these were and what they represented and how it worked. So I'm sure most people never even see these things, but a lot of these interactives with these exhibitions are just a gold mine. And then on the left, there's a scholar that talks about these different things, and it's a video recording of him explaining these vases and why they were important. So there's enough vases here and enough artifacts that you could have a whole class. But Dr. Mark Zender from Harvard talks about these vases and what it represented and how they did and all of that. So many of the exhibitions will have this interactive component.
Particularly the newer ones or more recent ones.
Mm-hmm.
Sherrie, tell us about Malice Toward None. With Malice Toward None.
That's another one of my favorites. It's kind of like picking your favorite child. The frustration with Malice Towards None is that's the title of the exhibition. It's about Lincoln, but you might miss that. So if you go to all exhibits and then hit that W, you'll get to that section. And again,
it's right there.
This one is one of the newer ones, and it's with Malice Towards None, the Abraham Lincoln Bicentennial exhibition. And this one, again, the design of the exhibition was to cover, as he rose to national prominence, his presidency, and then after his death. This is the collection that has the letter that the little girl wrote to him that said he'd look better with a beard. That doesn't belong to the Library of Congress, but they borrowed it from other entities around the country to make this a more complete exhibition. So it's in here. And then his letter back to them. There's also a section in the interactives that shows the train route that he took from Illinois to Washington, D.C. as prior to the inauguration. And then another journey of him after he died and how his body went home. But if you click on one of those interactives, it will show each step in the journey. And if you click on any of the dates, then there'll be newspaper articles and artifacts from that stop. So if we clicked on February 11th, then here are a bunch of primary sources that fit that first stop and where he left and who he saw and where, reports from the newspapers along the way. Again, lots of great stuff, but it's very well buried. And if you don't know it's there and you don't know to look for it, you would miss it.
Well, one of my favorites is the American colony in Jerusalem. And I was originally attracted to it because I had been to Jerusalem and I had actually been at the American Colony Hotel. And at the point that I was in Jerusalem, that was the only place you could get bacon in the whole city. because the rest was kosher. But as I looked at the collection, I realized this was giving history of that region from an entirely different point of view, because the Spafford family settled in the Arab section of Jerusalem outside the gate, and were friendly during World War I with the Turks and the Arabs. And so when all of this is going on and into World War II, they were celebrating and they were supporting people other than the Jewish people. Not, it wasn't anti-Semitic, but they were just saying, look, that there are all these other people who are a part of this city that need support and need celebration. And on a personal note, turns out that Bertha Spafford Nestor, whose granddaughter gave the collection to the library, was my grandmother's cousin. So when I saw that, I went, boy, even your family can get into the Library of Congress. So if you have a relative that's notable, get their papers and give them to the library. Anything else?
Fascinating. Did you know that your relatives had been part of this donation?
No. Originally I just saw the title, and I had been to the American Colony Hotel. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at it and going, oh my goodness, those are my short-tail relatives. So,
Wow, interesting.
yeah.
One other one I would point out is Creating the US. That one is, I think, very appropriate for social studies teachers. It covers the three main, the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Constitution. And in this section where they dig deeper, they show a lot of the rough drafts. If you again go to those interactives, which are some of my favorites because I think most people miss them, there's one on the Declaration, and if you launch that interactive, it will actually take you to the rough drafts. But even better, it will look at segments from the Declaration. So let's say Pursuit of Happiness, we could click on that and it will show us the pages where, or the segments where they talk about the pursuit of happiness, and from the rough draft with a transcription of what was crossed out, what was changed, which is very difficult to read otherwise. But then where did this idea come from? Then that connects you to other documents where these antecedent documents that led the founding fathers to include that segment in the Declaration. So again, more resources, more things that you can dig into, and make it more than just, this is the facts and this is how it was written. Where did it come from? Where did these ideas evolve from? So this exhibition is full of all kinds of really good things.
Well, and just a quick 8th grade aside, I always liked using drafts with my 8th graders, because when they would give me a draft and I would make them do it over, they would just like, oh, that's not fair. So you go, if Lincoln had to do it, if Jefferson had to do it, you have to do it. And somehow they were just better with that.
And I think to be able to look back, the power of looking back at a rough draft, if, as a teacher or even as a writer, to you personally being able to look back at your own words, what you crossed out, what you changed. And if it was part of a committee, to imagine the conversation that's going on about, no, we've got to change that because so-and-so won't vote for it if we put that in. And, oh, we've got to add this because he really likes this and we've got to include it. It cuts you down into the room where the thing is actually happening, or into the study where the item is being written, and you can see the thinking process behind it.
Which is amazing. So be sure to visit the exhibitions. Who knows, you might find one of your relatives in there too. But I think that, Kyle, do you have anything to add?
That's it. Thanks so much, Sherry and Cindy. That was amazing. I love these exhibits too. I try to share them as much as I can. And I know like I've heard a lot of NHD students use these a lot to help get ideas for curating
Right.
their own posters. Um, yeah, definitely check it out. And these are updated too as they get more exhibits coming into the library.
The one other thing I'd mention is to ask students to think about what the process was to put the exhibit together. You know, what was the main premise? What was the motivating factor? How did this evolve? Because being on the backside of an exhibition while it's in progress was, I mean, I attended a few meetings when they were discussing things, and it was like, whoa, way over my head. I never even imagined what all went into it. So that can be another interesting angle to have kids think about that process.
Well, years ago in Jeffco, we had a Western movement assessment, and the kids had to make an exhibit of what they thought were the most important things about the westward movement. And then, of course, they had to do an exhibit, and then they all went to the museum and visited each other's exhibits. So
Great.
so many ways that this could be used.
That's a great idea.
Well, I guess we're past our time. It's been fun. See you soon.
All right. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.